Okay, so I wanted to send you guys some videos that would explain a little bit more easily how to do some of the proofs that you may be asked to do. I think there's one on homework 3-2. The statements are there, just like these statements are there, and then you're going to be filling in the reasons. Now this is from page 32 in your notebook, so I'm just kind of giving you, yours is orange, so I'm just going to kind of go through the steps with you on how to give the reasons for each of these proofs. I'll probably send the second proof in a separate video just so the video files are not too big for you to download. So, okay, so in this first example here, I have two parallel lines, A and B, and they're telling me that they're parallel because that's the very first statement, and that's what's given to me up here, okay? And then there's three angles numbered, angle 1, angle 2, and angle 3. And we're asked to prove that angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, okay? Which means we're wanting to prove that they're equal to 180, okay? So, just so you know, just as a general standard rule, when you do proofs, usually the very first statement is always something that is already given to you. You don't have to prove it because they're telling you that's the way it is. And you can see that this matches what's given to you up here in the given. Given equals A is parallel to B. Those two double lines mean parallel. So for the first example there, all I'm going to do is I'm going to write given. And that's it. I don't have to do anything else on that one, okay? Now, one thing to keep in mind with all proofs is that one statement is derived from or arrived at based upon the statement before. So I always tell students when you're doing these, you always want to look at what was just said before, okay? Because in many cases, the thing that was said before leads you to the next statement, okay? Now, in this particular example, it does not, okay? In this particular example, this statement that comes next, the measure of angle 3 up here, and the measure of angle 2 right next to it equals 180. Now, you should recognize from our last chapter that the reason why that is true, the reason why the measure of those two equals 180 is because they share a straight line right here, okay? And since they share a straight line, two angles that are adjacent to each other and they share a straight line are going to add to 180 because a straight angle equals 180, okay? So in this particular example then, what I'm going to write for my reasoning is these are equal to 180 because the definition of supplementary, and you can abbreviate definition of supplementary angles. Okay, I'll just write it that way. Sorry, let's write it like this. Okay, that's like the angle sign and an S. Definition of supplementary angles. That's the reason why these are equal to 180. Because two angles that are equal to 180 are called supplementary angles. Okay? All right, now it says the next step, the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 2. Okay, so let's look at angle 1. Angle 1 is right here. I'm sorry, angle 3. The measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 3, those are congruent. This is where you're going to use what we've already learned this lesson, this week's work, okay? What kind of angles are angle 1 and angle 3? Well, those angles are corresponding angles. And if we've already been told that the angles are that the two lines are parallel, then we can say that those are corresponding angles, therefore they are congruent, okay? So the reasoning for that is going to be the corresponding angles postulate. That's a postulate. The postulate says if you have parallel lines, then the two angles are congruent, okay? Two corresponding angles. Okay, so then the next step, the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. Well, angle 1 and angle 2, they're right next to they're not right next to each other, okay? They're not sharing a side of the angle, okay? So that means that you're going to have to base this off of a previous step. And in this case, it's going to go with both this step here and it's going to go with this step here. If you look at this second statement here, the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. And then you look at this, the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. There's only one difference. The difference is that the measure of angle 1 has been replaced or has replaced the measure of angle 3. We're allowed to do that because of this middle step right here. If we have already said that the measure of angle 1 is the same as the measure of angle 3, then we can substitute the measure of angle 1 in place of the measure of angle 3. So all we did was we took the measure of angle 3 out and replaced it with the measure of angle 1. So that's going to be the substitution method. Or substitution property. But you can just write substitution, and for property we'll just put prop. So we have already now said that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. Anytime that you have two angles that add up to 180, that means they are, that means that they are supplementary. So that's the last step, and that's a repeat because that again is because that is the definition of supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are angles that add up to 180. So if you've already said that angle 1 and angle 2 add up to 180, therefore those two angles are supplementary. All right, so I'll make another video for the second proof.